Alright, welcome to an unintentional review of the Glossier Monochrome palettes. I saw this launch. I love the idea of a monochrome palette. I'm a one and done eyeshadow girl, but I'll always add a little bit of a matte shadow on the lower lash line or in the crease. So this kind of palette really appealed to me. The same color story, 3 different finishes, sounds like a dream. However, I was not gonna buy these because when I saw this design that they made a quad and didn't include a 4th shade despite having the space, my brain wanted to explode. Like, I didn't want to give them money because I wanted to rebel against that terrible, terrible design decision. But one of my friends actually ended up receiving some of the palettes in PR, I think, and she said that she wasn't going to use the shades Mist or Teak, so she sent them my way, and I figured at that point I might as well just get one more shade and do a comprehensive review for YouTube. When I first got these palettes, I was really excited about them. I instantly swatched them on my hands. I recorded it on Instagram, and everything looked amazing, except the mattes were very, very dry and were very sheer and hard to build. So I was a little bit hesitant when I saw how badly the mattes swatched. But then I got excited to put them on my eyes. The satins and the metallics looked stunning on my hands. So I scurried on up to my bathroom. It was dark out and I slapped the metallic on and I was like, where is it? So my first impression the night I got the palettes was not so great. And then I spent the past few days really familiarizing myself with all of the shadows in these 3 palettes that I have. The formula in the Glossier Monochrome Eyeshadow Palettes completely depends on which palette you're working with. So let's get into what I mean. All of these retail for about $22, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. And you'll see in any of the other reviews on YouTube and Instagram that the colors they picked are really, really beautiful. When they launched these palettes, I was really impressed by the shades and the colors that they selected. It seemed like a pretty great mix of wearable neutral shades and then some bright pops of color that would work across a wide range of skin tones. But I quickly realized in playing with the eyeshadow formulas myself across all of the different palettes that I got, it's very clear that there's variation in the formulas and performance among the palettes. For example, let's get right into the demo of Teak. Teak is the one that I purchased. My friend sent me Almond and Mist, and I really loved that Teak had this kind of mix between a warm brown and a copper. As you can see in the demo, everything applied pretty well. I think it looks beautiful. I think the matte was pigmented right off the bat, but not too pigmented. It seemed like the matte blended pretty well. I was able to get the look that I wanted with pretty minimal effort. When I added the satin, I was like, okay, it's not so bad. And then I really liked how the look turned out with the palette Teak when I added the metallic on top. Now, something you'll note among all of the palettes is that The metallics really don't have that much payoff. I just feel like in the world of 2021, where glitter toppers are all the rage, I was expecting a little bit more. I was expecting some chunky glitter, something really shiny, but I guess that's not really Glossier's thing, so kind of depends. But my expectations were just at the level of thinking the metallic would be really impactful because that's how it swatched on my hand. But regardless, I like how Teak turned out when I used all three shades, even though I think that there's really not that much variation between the matte to the satin and the satin to the metallic. Like, they're very, very similar. But at least I thought that Teak was really beautiful and didn't require a ton of effort. But even as I swatched them, you can see here, this is the matte for Teak, and in the middle we have the satin. And it looks different enough on my fingers, but when it's on your eyes, look at that. You really can't see the difference between the matte and the satins. Like, I'm telling you, I'm looking in person and there is just barely a difference. The satin has ever so slightly a tiny bit of shimmer that just makes it look like your lids are like hydrated. And as you can see, the matte is much more sheer than the satin. So that's frustrating. And that's what happens with all three of these palettes. However, I do feel that Teak is the best performing and it has the most pigment and the metallic has the most payoff. So if I swatch the metallic of Teak next to the satin, you can see there is a difference. So not much of a difference between the matte and the satin. And so as a result, I would really just skip the matte and I would use the satin kind of all over my lid, all up into the crease and under the lower lash line. The mattes are super, super sheer, though they are buildable, but the satins perform really well, even if they're kind of lackluster. So the metallics are really pretty. You know, I do like how it looked on my lid once I had the final look for Teak. But as you can see, there's just really not a lot of variety here. Let's talk about Mist. I was stoked on this palette. I feel like this color is like all the rage right now. Oh my God, I sound like I'm 100 years old. That was like, all the cool kids say this is a really groovy palette. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I just thought that this was like a really nice color. I thought this would look great on everyone. And then I applied it. As you can see in the demo, holy moly, I used this matte shade. I think I built it up on my eyes 5-6 times to get that payoff. I mean, really, that's like as much as you can get. I was getting so frustrated. Building up these mattes is so difficult. And some of you who have better eyeshadow skills than I have might be thinking that I'm being a little bit overly dramatic. But I think that Glossier's whole thing is that their products are supposed to be really easy to use, like minimal, kind of like slap it on and go kind of looks. And that's why I just don't feel like the formulas match their general like brand aesthetic and mission. So once I finally had Mist built up the way that I kind of was at least able to tolerate it, then I went in with the satin. And I think the satin's pretty. Like, I can definitely see myself using it, but I think I would have to use it with a different matte shadow that just performed better, is a little bit darker, or just a little bit more pigmented or blendable. But honestly, when it comes to palettes like this, a good metallic can save the day for me because, like I said, I'm a one and done eyeshadow kind of girl. If I can slap on a pigmented, glittery shadow, I'm good to go, and I'm not really bothered if the others aren't so great. But when I was applying this, I just felt like it was really hard to get the color payoff that I wanted. On my hand right now, I mean, this is really, really trying to build it up, and these swatch beautifully. That's why they're quite deceiving. Like, you know, you look at that and you're like, damn, that's stunning. But really, you have to put in a lot of effort to build that up. I have a friend here, her YouTube channel is Keeping Up with BB, and she applied this too, and it like barely showed up on her. So that really tells you what you need to know, that there's variety among the different colors, and some of them are just not gonna show up on everyone. I barely was able to build this up, and even with the metallic, I still couldn't get the color payoff that I wanted after like 3 layers. I think I went in with like 5 layers of the matte, maybe like 3 layers of the satin and 2 layers of the metallic, it's just too much work to get the look that I personally want. The palette I was most excited for is the one that my friend sent me. It's the shade Almond. I'm wearing it on my eyes right now, all 3 shades, and this is just me in a color. This is exactly what I want on my eyes every single day when I'm going to work, when I'm just going out and about. I only really go kind of glam or fun and creative with my makeup when I'm doing stuff for YouTube. And again, as you'll see in the demo, I went in so many times with this matte shade. You can see it is quite close to my skin tone. And I tried really, really hard. You can see how crumbly they are when you build them up. The mattes are just really quite dry and quite sheer, which I think makes for like a disastrous matte shadow. I'm not saying that like it's a terrible, terrible product. It's just not the best. So in doing the demo for the Almond palette right before I was filming this, I mean, it took me like 20 minutes at least to build up the matte to where I wanted it to look like this. Like this is barely nothing. I went in, I don't know, 5 layers of that. And then I was like, okay, let's move on. I have like a work meeting in like 10 minutes. So let's go in with the satin. Then I put the satin on, as you can see on the top of my hand. It's a satin, yeah, but it looks really close to the matte, which is right here, like super close, like I said with the others. So the variation is just not that much. What is consistent among all 3 palettes is that the satins perform the same. So the satins all seem to, of course, have a satin finish, and they seem to all have the same level of pigmentation and the same blendability. So at least we've got that. I would truly just skip using the mattes if you have these palettes. I would just go right in with the satins, save yourself the trouble and skip the mattes. And you can go in with the satin, and that's basically what I did to get this look after I got so frustrated with the matte. Then I was stoked on the metallic. It swatched so well, but again, it's beautiful, but it's just not what I want it to be. 4 layers of the metallic still didn't even get me 1 layer of the L'Oreal eyeshadow in Amber Rush. That eyeshadow is such a creamy, pigmented, shiny eyeshadow formula. I go in with my finger, 1 swipe all over the lids. I have exactly the shine that I want. It blends out in a second, and it's a drugstore shadow for like 10 bucks. With this metallic, I still don't even get the shine of the L'Oreal Amber Rush eyeshadow, and they're quite close in color, which is why I'm comparing them. That being said, I think these palettes could be useful for a certain person. For example, if you're a huge fan of Glossier, if you're a Glossier collector, I can understand why you'd want this palette. Or if you are someone who likes barely their eyeshadow looks and you just want something that has a few different finishes that are only slightly different, maybe this is what they were going for. Maybe Glossier's thing is like something that is so basic that it's just kind of a barely there wash of color, but that's not what the marketing was. So I can't in good conscience give this my recommendation. And also, I can't get over the fact that they made a quad and didn't put a 4th shadow in here. They thought that this G stamp was a better use of space than a 4th shadow. All they had to do was push this up and put in a 4th shadow that was like a significantly darker matte so that you could do a powder liner. Boom, you have an even better look right there. Or put a 4th shadow in that's a true glitter topper. Then you have 4 different finishes for a much more diverse look. Like I just can't possibly understand why they would make a quad with only 3 shades. Plus, it's not like you can pop out these eyeshadows. You know, it would be fun to like mix and match like you can with Natasha Denona. You can't do that. And these are refillable, but I am literally never going to go through all of these eyeshadows. And this tin packaging is very heavy and unnecessarily bulky. Those are all my thoughts. Sorry, Glossier. I love the concept here. I love the shades, love monochromatic eyeshadow palettes. I just think that the design and the execution was very poor. You can create some pretty looks with these, but ultimately, I just don't think that it's gonna be worth your money. I think there are much better options out there from the drugstore and from luxury brands that will get you the look you want with much less effort. Whew. All right, I gotta go to a meeting now. Such is life being a YouTuber with a full-time job. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.